like the schedule, guys. Let's just start big picture. I'm fine with the schedule. Every year people gripe about something. Schedule's fine to me. I have zero problems with the schedule. What say you?
Yeah, I don't have any problems with it either. I mean, nothing. There's always going to be something you don't love because they can't make everybody happy. I mean, last year's schedule I think overall was pretty good, and I think this schedule is good as well. I mean, you can't ever get everything to line up exactly the way you want. And so Florida State certainly had some things that they would have had preferred. From a ticket sales standpoint, yeah, they're not thrilled about having 3 straight home games, and it's going to be tough for fans who live in Miami or Atlanta to make 3 straight trips to Tallahassee. That's probably not going to happen for a lot of them. But from a competitive standpoint, the biggest thing is you're hoping they don't, screw you over. And I don't think they did that. In fact, Corey and I were talking about it last night. The fact that, no teams that they play have a bye the week before play Florida State. And a lot of the teams that play Florida State have tough games the week before. I think Miami has NC State on the road the week before they come to Florida State. So, yeah, there are always things that you don't love. But overall, I think they took care of Florida State pretty well.
Almost every one of Florida State's opponents after Clemson play either Pitt, Notre Dame, or NC State before they play FSU, and none of them have a bye week, as you noted, Ira.
This team now has some experience with stages, big stages, and those are going to be big. Those are going to be the 2 biggest stages of the season. And they that Oklahoma game, I know it was a Cheez-It Bowl, but it was a massive crowd for that game, and there was legitimate pressure on a team in a Cheez-It Bowl to get to 10 wins. And I didn't think they played well. I know they didn't play well to start that game. But as the game went on, they did play well. They won that game. There was pressure on them to beat Florida because that was not a good Florida team, and they wanted to finish with 5 straight wins. They didn't play well at times in that game, but they won the game. I just think that the way that team learned to deal with stages after that 3 game, like they were good against LSU, although they kind of melted down in the fourth quarter. Then I thought the stage we've talked about, maybe got a little too big for them in that 3-game losing streak. That Wake game, they did not handle it well at all. They were on their way to not handling it well against Florida, and they did. They beat Florida, Oklahoma. They handled the stage against Miami very, very well. The point being, you've got all this experience coming back, and you've got guys all over your football team that have played well in big moments with a lot of people watching. They're used to the stage. We could not say that about this team last year. The only time they played well, really, with people watching was the Notre Dame game, and that was a game they were down by 18 points and came back and tied it with a backup quarterback. Now they all have experience of playing well in big moments, and I think that should serve them well, and hopefully they don't have those ruts where they give up 28 straight to Wake or 27 straight to Clemson.
We talk about how, man, what a raw deal that coaching staff got in year 1 with coming in after the mess of Willie and Jimbo and then COVID year and everything else. Are they better off today having had that happen, but having the use of the portal and everything else, and Jordan Travis, those guys getting the extra year? So Jordan Travis and Fabian Lovett and all these guys who can be super seniors are here now? Or would they have been better off if they had a normal first year and could have got some momentum going early? It's a good question.
It's a really good question. The only thing I'd say is, we can't know that. I
know, but it's just a fun exercise because Jordan wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the COVID year. Jordan wouldn't be. I don't think Fabian Lovett would have eligibility. There's a bunch of guys. Braden Fisk wouldn't have eligibility. There's a bunch of guys on this team.
The reason I'm inclined to say that they're better off, and we couldn't have known they would be, that they're better off now than they would have been, is partly because of the transfer portal, which we didn't know what this was going to be and their usage of it. But because they did not assemble a staff, he did not assemble a staff that had connections to Florida high schools and great relationships, they would not have been able to utilize the new car smell to the same degree some coaching staffs have when they've entered into the state of Florida and brought in a haul of 5-star kids just because of the excitement around first-year coaches. So
you would have got some of it, but maybe not as much as
you normally would, right? And so therefore, it may not, because I would argue that, yes, you wouldn't have had Jordan Travis, but maybe you would have signed a 5-star quarterback. Right. You would have been able to hit the ground running and recruiting in the high schools, but you couldn't. So,
you probably wouldn't have been 5-7 in year 2.
That's
you probably would have had a better year there. So it's just an interesting exercise.
It's a tough call, but and hey, listen, the way they've utilized it better than anybody in the country. I mean, there's only a couple other teams in the conversation about the usage of the portal the way that Florida State has. This is acknowledged beyond Tallahassee. People sit back and watch the way that this staff and Mike Norvell in particular has utilized it, and they're envious. I love hearing the anger. They're like, well, what's Florida State? This is ridiculous. People will just push back because you're
It's
having.
like it used to be in the 90s with high school recruiting.
Right.
Like, what is Florida State selling these kids? Why do all these All-Americans want to go to Florida State when they're not going to play? You're getting that same kind of incredulity about why in the world is Florida State just killing it in the portal? Like, they're beating out Notre Dame for a Western Michigan kid. What is going on?
Right.
Corey, I don't know if it's the glasses or what, but you nailed that word.
Well,
Look,
and he
man,
was nervous
that's
about it. You could tell there was a minimal stutter at the beginning because he wasn't sure he was using the word properly. But I'm so proud of him.
No.
Reaching back.
I knew I was using the word properly. I didn't know if I was going to pronounce it correctly. Incredulity. You want to say incredulous. You want to go that route.
You can say you were incredulous, but you went with the root word.
Yeah.
Yes.
Look, guys, it is the glasses. Also, I just start thinking about Norvell. It just the brain works a little better. You know what I mean? Jeff, you can understand. It's early in the morning. I got to get something going. I got to get the juices flowing a little bit. So now, is Tom going to post the picture? I hope Tom don't. That wasn't an ask.
So I wasn't at a place where I could say that comfortably. Now, I would say that to you now.
Yeah, sure.
But, I can't do that then because we're not close enough yet.
We didn't have the history that we do now.
Right.
Like, yes, you could certainly tell me.
To be sure.
Like, I'll be honest, those dumb hats you wear, we don't like them.
Yeah.
You look like a clown.
Right,
Corey, Tom? Is that what we're doing?
Corey, it's different. It's different. He's talking to the 2012 Corey Clark.
Right.
He's not talking to 2023 Corey Clark.
Yeah, right.
You gotta
and Corey, I knew Corey's defense mechanisms would come up. I sensed he was like this a moment ago. I'm like, here comes something. He's going to say he hates my shoes or something. I knew it was coming. But it's all right. Let it go. You moved on. And
in my defense, because it's getting Shane. First it went from Shanna that got blamed. Now Ira got blamed for not being a good enough fan or friend. Back in the day, Corey wore hats all the time. He was always wearing a cap. So you had the hair on the sides. You had the illusion that he had hair. So that was actually a better look than being bald.
Oh,
but unless you took the hat off. If you had the hat on, though, you looked like you had the locks. It was good.
Well, now you got it right. And luckily, society came around, too. We were ostracized early on, Corey, you and I, with our baldness. Right. Now people accept it, love it, embrace it. Hell, people clamor for Ira to shave his head every show.
Yeah,
there's the photo.
I'm showing it. So, Jeff, I don't remember. I always thought you were bald. You have real hair there.
I still have real hair, Corey. I just don't. This top portion up top there is a little thin.
But then you look at me.
What was going on?
I don't, because there's if you look at the top of the head, there's some hair there too that I left, and I just don't quite understand it.
This is the Zapruder film breakdown, but I got to tell you, Corey, good God.
It doesn't make sense. I blame Shanna, and I apologize to Shanna that she was married to that. Because look at what it is now. Look at the package now, gang.
All right, next question. And by the way, Wilson, we're not embittered. All right, next one. I know you guys will discuss the schedule, but any thoughts on November ending with Miami and UF 2 of the 3 weeks, then possibly playing Clemson all within 4 weeks? Well, he adds in this that he noted Clemson has a tough schedule down the stretch too. If they didn't, that would be bothersome, but they do too. So you're all going to be coming out the other side a little ragged. And that's just all it is to play big-time football, man. If you're playing for conference championships, you're going to play a stretch where you're playing 2 out of the last 3 weeks. You're at least going to be playing somebody who's capable of running with you.
I didn't think about that, though. That's a good point about the last 4 weeks. If you get to the championship game, there's a very good chance the last 4 games of your schedule are Miami, North Alabama, Florida, and Clemson. That's a 3 out of 4.
Miami is akin to North Alabama, Corey.
Well,
that's true.
Well, that was one thing I was going to say is it's actually it might be a kind of a gift that you get Miami that late because their season may be completely gone at that point. We'll see. Maybe it won't be. But based on recent
one
history,
of my friends was, Bill Hayes actually last night was like at Corner Pocket was like, oh, well, I'm glad we're playing them in November. They're always terrible in November.
Right.
And then that's a good point. Cashed it in by then.
Yeah, and the other part of it, I think, and again, kind of related back to the topic of the early bye, is you do have some games in there that you'd like to think if Florida State's where they're at now, they're not going to be 4-quarter games, maybe. Some of those games in that middle stretch where they got the back-to-back home games. So maybe you can rest some guys reps, get some depth in those games going into that home stretch.
Is Magic Mike's Last Dance the one with Selma Hayek in it?
I don't know. Is that a movie? Is that is there a sequel coming out?
I don't know either, but there's some movie with Channing Tatum and Selma Hayek coming out in which there's like a prolonged sex scene.
You said that wrong.
Channing Tatum.
I don't know who that is.
Channing Tatum.
Oh, okay, there you go.
His first name is not Tanning.
I don't know who it is. My point is, this Channing guy is apparently, he's got the greatest acting gig of all time. Hello, fellas from Bartlett, Tennessee. Is this a championship schedule or what? LSU and Clemson early to get the momentum going. Do you see any possible hiccups after the bye week? Thanks for the great content, and as always, go Noles. Well, thanks, Ted.
Thanks, man. I mean, we're old, so we see possible hiccups everywhere. I mean, that's the reality. I mean, there's a bunch of games you could say, well, man, that could be dicey. That could be tricky. That, there's – look, but the big games, as far as, obviously the big games, you're talking about Florida State, you're talking about Clemson, Pitt on the road, I think is a real challenging game. LSU obviously is a big challenging game, but assuming you win more than you lose of those big games, you should be in great shape for all those other games. I mean, the difference between this year and last year, to Jeff, you hinted on this earlier, is there's a lot more games that you feel very confident they're going to win. Whereas last year, it was like coin flip.
We thought they were all coin tosses. Yeah. They were all going to be a 5-point spread either way. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. This one, you have a couple of coin tosses, probably 3, maybe. Maybe just 2. I mean, I don't know what Florida or Pitt are going to be at the end of the year.
Right.
But so, in September, you have 2 coin tosses. And quite frankly, you go 3-1 in September, everything is in front of you. It doesn't you really kind of need to beat LSU more than you need to beat Clemson, because you can play Clemson again later in the year. But even if you lose to LSU and win at Death Valley, that's a very impressive win too. So if you finish September 3-1, you've got a chance to accomplish all your goals.
Got to finish 3-1 bare minimum to give yourself a chance at making the football playoff. I agree.
One other thing that's go ahead.
No, I was just saying, God help everybody if we're 4-0.
Oh, buddy. Oh, buddy, are you kidding me?